Alright, so this is our first member, and he is roughly around 4 out of 10. And this is somewhat unattractive on my scale of appeal. And before we go into any more ratings, because we're going to be looking at a handful of members today, the rating is the middle point between both sides of standard deviation. The expected standard deviation for these ratings is around 0.25 to 0.3 points. This member being a 4, he realistically is within the range of anywhere between 3.7 to 4.3 out of 10 for appeal. His potential rating is likely anywhere between a 6.75 and a 7.25. And it will likely take him around 6 to 8 months to reach this potential rating. Similar to last video, I'm just going to mention the key points for these members to improve by focusing on the most important, almost noticeable facial flaws. Because if you focus on those facial flaws, you're going to make the most improvement in comparison to focusing on less important features and very minor flaws. What's the first thing that stands out to me with this member? Well, the skin is unappealing by definition. I've already given this member and the other members in this video their facial analyses. This is something that they get as part of their membership inside the community. So as you can see from the side profile and the front profile, the skin definitely draws attention in a negative way. So with this member, I've highly advised fully locking in with phase 1. And if he is more serious about removing this acne, then starting an elimination diet is really important because we want to minimize how long the acne is on the face to reduce the severity of scarring, which will likely be slightly in place here. So after he clears the acne, there will likely be some scarring, but we want to remove the acne as soon as possible. So no time wasted to really minimize this scarring afterwards. Typically, a really effective elimination diet fitting within the phase 1 diet is ruminant meat, organ meat, and water, and preferably having that water 4-stage reverse osmosis filtered to remove microplastics, pharmaceuticals, heavy metals, and other contaminants as well. So that's his first focus, and it should be the priority over all the other fixes in his Looksmaxxing plan. In this video, we'll just look at the key aspects as mentioned. I won't go over everything that was mentioned in the analysis just to save time and for the sake of the video to keep things interesting and not too long and drawn out. So the next thing he needs to focus on is the hair. So the hair is going to be really important for this member for a few reasons. Currently, he's got the boring short back and sides haircut. It's not adding anything. It's not really doing anything. And also the ears are slightly unideal in shape. So having hair coming down over the top thirds will help to conceal this and reduce the attention that they draw away from the face. So these are the recommended hairstyles that I've included in the analysis, and this will be big for him and improve his appeal significantly. The next biggest issue that's holding him back from becoming a lot more attractive. So the eyebrows definitely lack density and darkness. So a very subtle dye of around 10 to 15% darker will not only help to darken these eyebrows, but also increase the perceived density. So it's sort of like a 2-in-1 fix. But he should definitely start using castor oil or minoxidil and microneedling to improve the density of the eyebrows for sure, to increase the dimorphism and move away from the more juvenile looking eye area. Finally, the neck is noticeably thin. I'd recommend this member increases the thickness of the neck around 1 to 1.5 inches in total in circumference. And this can be achieved in anywhere from 1 to 3 months, realistically, with consistent and effective training, which is outlined in phase 1 and the facial definition guide. You can get that in the link in the description. It's completely free. But phase 1, if you didn't already know, is the first of 3 phases. Phase 1 is optimizing your facial composition and lifestyle. Phase 2 is identifying your specific facial flaws based on your unique facial structure. And phase 3 is making intentional, justified changes to fix those facial flaws. So that's sort of what we're doing in this video. Those changes alone will significantly improve his appeal. Of course, there's more, but we're just going to keep this short and sweet. All right, so this is our next member, and this guy has a lot of potential, just like the previous guy, and just like everyone in this video, but a lot of potential here because a lot of the appeal that's being held back right now is coming from the hair. Of course, the acne scarring as well, which I'll mention just after the hair. If we have a look at his previous hairstyle and hair length, this is near optimal in terms of appeal, female gaze. Shaving this to a buzz cut was a big mistake, and the recommended hairstyles that I've suggested this guy goes for, very similar to what you're seeing here, but they're slightly improved and will increase the appeal even more. This is his first thing to focus on. Obviously, this is more of a background thing, so he doesn't have to really do anything apart from just wait. It's always going to be a waiting game for the hair. There's no realistic way to significantly improve hair growth. Luckily, this is a really easy thing for this member to do, And there's easily around a point of appeal to be gained from growing the hair to this suggested style and length. The next most noticeable issue is the acne scarring. This is holding back the appeal quite significantly. It's not as noticeable in this photo, but yeah, it's definitely unappealing. And reducing this scarring and acne will be pivotal in his transformation. I would say there's anywhere from half a point to a point of appeal in total by completely fixing the aesthetic issues of the skin currently. He's currently around a 5.25 out of 10 in terms of appeal, which is somewhere between very little attraction and some attraction. So there is attraction, it's just on the smaller side. What he needs to do for this is monthly microneedling. So getting a dermapen and a nice supply of needles once every 4 weeks, an intense session of anywhere from 0.5 to 1 millimeter in terms of needle depth on the maximum speed, which is typically around 6 on the dermapens. This is going to be more of a mid to long term process. You typically start seeing noticeable results from microneedling around 5 to 10 sessions in. This will take 5 to 10 months to realistically see a noticeable improvement. I've also recommended this member to go see a dermatologist for a professional third-person opinion. It'd be very beneficial for him to be seen in person with specific lighting and evaluation by a specialist, as there may be additional in-clinic interventions that this member can do to speed up the process and reduce the noticeability of the scarring. So what's his potential rating? Well, I'd say anywhere from 7 to 7.5 out of 10. In terms of appeal and real life experience of being at around a 7 to 8 out of 10, this is really high appeal. And this level of appeal tends to draw compliments and attention more often than not. So of course, the experiences that this member will have at his potential rating in comparison to how he is now will be completely different. So with the hair more specifically, this member is going to be countering a very squarish looking face and head. This is going to be important because the styles that I've suggested, they're not only going to reduce this square appearance, they're going to add necessary asymmetry and flow to the profile, which is crucial because at the moment his facial definition and development is incredible, but it might be slightly too intense. We want to balance this with slightly softer features, and that is what the hair will do. It adds a softness to the profile. As you can see here, it's just a lot better, even with this hairstyle, which is good, but it's not quite doing what we need it to do by reducing the squarish appearance of the face, but it's adding a softness to the overall profile. And you can sort of see the early stages of the aim here with the hair, where it's countering the very angular and hypermasculine appearance. Once he has this hair comes out around, behind, in front of the ears, below the ears, it's going to warp the shape of the head and balance this development perfectly. So next, as you may or may not have noticed watching along, is the neck is noticeably thin in comparison to the jaw, which is obviously very well developed, and the head. So this makes the head look larger than it should, and it doesn't look as good as it can. And for this member, we want to add around an inch of total circumference to the neck. So you'll recognize a theme with a lot of the members in the videos on this channel. A lot of people benefit from increasing the neck circumference. On average, it's very common. Neck curls, neck extensions, neck flexion. The exact routine and details and how to do that safely are in the facial definition guide in the video description. It's completely free, so you can go and download that if you want to make a start on increasing your neck thickness starting from today. The microneedling is also going to really help to improve the texture of the skin, which is honestly very rough and slightly unappealing as well. And the hair is also going to add some perceived width and distance either side of the face, which is going to help to reduce the perceived width of the nose, which is slightly too wide. And finally, neglecting optimal hydration and appeal for the mouth region and lips is a big mistake. So staying on top of that is very important. And all of these changes, the entire transformation for this member, will likely take around 7 to 8 months of ongoing support inside the community, which may seem like a considerable amount of time. But if you compare it to not only to how long it would take outside of the community without the support system, and also not knowing exactly what to change, this is a difference between actually making noticeable improvement and not making any improvement at all, or even in the right direction for what is actually optimally appealing. As most people will make certain changes or quote unquote fixes to their face and appearance that don't actually push them in the right direction. So this next member is a very good example of a true average face, so a 4.75 out of 10. So neither unattractive or attractive, but this guy has a lot of potential and could easily become noticeably, if not very attractive. So this member's potential rating is similar to the first member in this video, anywhere from around 6.7 to 7.25, similar to the previous two members in this video, the hair is suboptimal. This is the recommended look, style, length that I've recommended for this member. It will significantly improve his appeal. If we have a look at his side profile here, you can see the development of the facial hair is very suboptimal, and there's very slight recession of the jaw hair. So I've recommended this member to lock in with facial hair development, hopping on topical minoxidil. This will help to, of course, develop the facial hair, fill in the gaps. There's a sparse look, and will also help to subtly reduce the perception of recession here. But not only that, having a masculine feature here will very nicely balance with a slightly longer hair. So all of these changes, these suggestions, they always have the consideration with how they're going to balance at the end. So it's always important to have a balance of the different aspects of your appearance that work against each other. You want masculinity, you want femininity, you want youthfulness, you want maturity, but it's important that all of these are optimally balanced, which is extremely difficult to do, and that's why I'm here. This combination of the slightly longer hair with the masculine stubble will really work for this member, and of course with the other improvements that it will do. So this member's mouth region is very slightly unappealing, the upper lip more specifically. So as you can see, this is a really good example of a noticeable upper lip tubercle, which is slightly unappealing. In this member's analysis, I recommended to increase the volume of the upper lip very slightly, also with the intention to reduce the perception of the upper lip tubercle. And this can be done with a subtle filler either side of the tubercle to reduce its appearance, whilst also increasing the volume. Finally, if we look at the lower half of the face in comparison to the upper half of the face, the lower half is definitely less attractive. And this is linking in with the mouth region, but also the development of the jaw and the width of the jaw. So the jaw is currently noticeably underdeveloped. So I've recommended this member follows the two routines for the jaw. So that's the resisted chewing and the mouthguard clenching, and also increasing the thickness of the neck, as you may have predicted. Currently looking way too thin, and will also look very thin once the development of the jaw is in optimal range or golden zone. This member has a lot of potential. Okay, so here's our last member, and this member's around a 3.75 out of 10. This is somewhere in between the somewhat unattractive bracket to the moderately unattractive bracket. The main issues with this member, the current hairstyle and length, is allowing for way too much hairline visibility and is creating a very unappealing look here. Here are the recommended hairstyles that I gave to this member. They'll help a lot. And these pictures were actually from a month ago. Since then, he's actually made some good improvement with the styling and intention of the hair. It already looks so much better. There's at least half a point of appeal, maybe even a point of appeal to be gained with his hair. So he's already on great progress in his transformation. Based on his monthly progress check, which we did about a week ago, he's definitely on good track. The next thing that is noticeably holding him back are the eyebrows. Since then, he's also shaped these very well. But what I recommended to him was the flattening of the top, subtle flattening, reducing what you're seeing above the mouse here, and also subtly trimming the lower outer aspect of the eyebrows just to make them look neater, tidier, without giving overly done or fake look, which is very important, and that's what he's achieved. That's very good. The next thing that stands out to me with this member are the eyes. Focusing on increasing the tightness of the lower eyelids is going to be a really important part of this member's transformation. In general, this member's eye area is slightly unappealing. So focusing on it is so important because the eye area is, of course, the most important part of the face. Coming back to the lower eyelids, you can see that this member doesn't even have negative canthal tilt, but it looks like he does because the lower eyelids are noticeably loose. So this is going to reduce this positive tilt, taking him from what looks like a neutral canthal tilt to a negative canthal tilt. This is also exacerbated by the hooding, which is slightly too negative. Having a little bit of negative, or so-called negative tilting of the hooding is fine because it actually follows the shape of the eye and increases the outline, which is one of the most important things for the eye, the outline, which is why noticeable eyelashes are so important. Therefore, reducing the noticeability of the negative tilt of the hooding is what this member should also focus on. Medial eyelid pulling will help to counter this very slightly. All he needs is anywhere from 0.25 to 0.5 millimeters of increase in medial hooding either side. It will not only reduce the upper eyelid exposure here, which is slightly too much as well, but also reduce the negative tilting appearance of the eye area. Finally, with the eyes, increasing the visibility of the eyelashes will be very important for him. So that's increasing the fullness and increasing the darkness. And that's with castor oil and dye. And with these eyes, you could maybe notice that the spacing between the eyes is slightly too small. And this is giving the appearance of slightly close-set eyes. As you can see with the recommendations for the hair, this will reduce the exposure of the temples and reduce the distance between the outer eye and the edge of the face. And what happens here, when you do this, it reduces the perceived close-set appearance of the eyes. So this will be very important for him as well. Finally, looking at the lower third of the face, this holds him back quite significantly. Looking from the side profile, he seems to have good development of the lower third. It's just from the front profile, the jaw lacks angularity and development. The face in general looks very bloated, round, lacks noticeable definition, which is very important. What I've recommended this member do is grow a well-developed stubble. And from what it looks like, this will have to be done with topical minoxidil and microneedling.